Well, here's the next project in Donny Boy 73's shop. An old vintage Stihl 075 AV chainsaw. The number tag is gone from the saw itself, but another guy I know told me that he believes it's the 075 AV, and I've looked up pictures on the internet and it's the closest match I can come up with. It's like a big tank. If you look at it from the back here, it really does look like a tank. And she's heavy. But it's surprisingly in good shape for the age. Even underneath it's not too bad. So what's happening with this saw is you pour gas down the carburetor here from the air filter. It starts up, but it won't keep going. So what I'm going to do is take the carburetor apart, rebuild it, and go from there, and hopefully it's going to run after that. To start that, let's take the air filter cover off. Then the air filter will just pop off. The two 5/16 nuts here need to be removed. Make sure you close the choke in case a nut falls into the motor. Now you need an Allen wrench. There's a little Allen bolt under here, situated right under here, and you have to remove that for the cover to come off. You can reach in with pliers and grab the bolt. Now this cover is going to come off. Don't lose this little plate here. Now you're going to notice that the choke lever is still hooked up, so you may want to just disconnect that for now. And the switch wire is still hooked up. At this point here, I'm just going to leave the plate to the side like that, because I can easily access the carburetor directly from here. Now I'm going to disconnect this line here from the carb. These lines are going to need to be replaced anyways. And I've turned the saw over to show you that I'm going to disconnect the fuel line from the fuel tank. Now don't pry too hard on this connector, because if the line's stuck real tight, you could break this connector and you may have a hard time to hunt one down. Now to remove the carburetor, I'm just going to pull up. The throttle linkage is still going to be hooked on for now. So pull up. Now grab the carburetor, hold the linkage, and just disconnect it. Now we got the carb off, and while you're rebuilding it, you can plug the intake hole with a rag so nothing falls in there while you're rebuilding your carb. So here's our carburetor. It's a Tillotson carburetor. And if you look on the side here, you can see the model number of the carb, HS6DB51. That's the numbers you want to refer to when you get a carb kit for it. Now I'm going to take the carburetor apart and put a new carb kit in there. So I'm going to start by removing this cover here. Now you can already see a problem in here. You can see all the dirt in here. That's going to need to be cleaned really good. Also the diaphragm, you can tell it's stiff, so it's not going to work right. I'm just going to remove that. When these little tabs here get stiff, it doesn't work good anymore. Usually that's caused from sitting, bad gas, old gas. It dries up and it's no more good. Also, they can only last for so long as well. This one here has probably been in the carb for maybe 20 years or more, so it's time for a new one. Now we'll take the side of the metering diaphragm off. If the cover is stuck, just pry it off with a screwdriver. In this case it came off easy. And you can see that the metering diaphragm is not in the best of shape. It's not too stiff, but while I'm at it, I'm going to replace it as well. Now to remove this diaphragm, just grab the end here and pull. Don't worry if you damage it, because we are not reusing it. And this gasket here has to be completely removed. And the last parts to remove are the needle and the lever. Just do that by loosening this screw here. You don't need to remove the screw completely, just enough to get the pin out through there. And don't lose a little spring under there. So I put my carburetor in a bowl here with the cover, and what I'm going to do is spray it with some carb cleaner and let it sit for a while. Always spray your carburetor with the needle removed because you can damage the tip of the needle. It's made of a Viton tip or neoprene, and the carb cleaner could damage it. Also, if you had a container, you could actually fill it with carb cleaner and let it soak inside the carb cleaner. That would actually be better. So you especially want to get these dirty holes here cleaned up. So I'll let that sit for an hour and then come back and clean it. Now the carb kit I got for this is an OEM Tillotson carb kit number RK23HS. Also a kit number RK21HS will fit the Stihl. Now I'm going to dump out the diaphragm so I can match them up. And you're going to have a lot of little parts in there like the lever, the Welsh plug, and the screen because it's a complete rebuild kit. So what you want to do is match up the diaphragms. There's the old one, there's the new one. I'll just match these up. This one here goes with the metering diaphragm. So that matches these two here. Now you want to match up these ones. The diaphragm here is stuck to the gasket. So just stick it over, and it's pretty well the only diaphragms in the kit. Some kits come with extra diaphragms, so you really have to match them up. So there we go. That's all we need. And I've got the needle here, and it's got a rubber tip. It's silver in color, but if you touch it, it's soft. And we have a new lever here, and we're going to need the little screen for sure. I'm not going to replace the Welsh plug because most of the time you don't need to. I would only do this if the carburetor was really corroded and had gotten water inside of it. So here's my carb after sitting for a while. Just going to wipe this cover off. And I'm going to clean this with a soft wire brush very gently. Get it nice and clean again. So I'm going to use my powered wire brush, but when I put the part on the brush, I'm going to go very lightly. Now you can see that my parts came out nice and clean. Like I said, you want to go gently on that brush because you don't want to scratch the surface here. We've got the carburetor itself to clean out. That's going to be more of a challenge. This part here is not too bad, but I'm going to remove all the excess gasket that's left over. And I'll remove that on the wire brush as well. Now when you clean your parts on the wire brush, make sure that there's no carburetor cleaner left on it, because if there's any little spark, it could ignite. So again, go gently on your carb. So now we got a nice clean surface on this side of the carb. Now we're going to clean the other side. Before I do that, I'm going to remove the little screen in here. To do that, I'm just going to grab a little pick, insert it inside, and scoop up the screen. Don't worry if you damage it because we're not reusing it. And it's out. You can see that the hole is nice and clean. That's the hole that goes to where the needle is in here. So it's very important that that hole is nice and clear like that. Now I'm not going to clean this side of the carb on the wire brush because I want to make sure that where the little tabs on the diaphragms close up these little holes, that there's no scratches. Now to clean this side of the carb properly, I've got a piece of 400 grit sandpaper on a nice flat surface, and I'm going to rub it like this. hand. You can also rub it by hand like this. Now make sure you give it a good clean after doing this, because there's going to be a bit of dirt from the sandpaper and that came off the surface here. You don't want that going back in the carb. So what I'm going to do now is just rinse it with the carb cleaner to get all that excess dirt off. I'm also going to spray carb cleaner in all these holes here. Make sure you wear safety glasses if you do this, because the carb cleaner can spray out of another hole and go straight in your face. Now everything looks pretty clean. Look at all the dirt that came out of here. I'm also going to air blow these small holes with my air compressor at about 60 pounds. You're going to air blow your carburetor. Make sure you've got safety glasses, and like I said, keep the air pressure pretty low so that you don't damage anything in the carburetor. It's very unlikely that you would anyways. Get all these holes here. Want to get the fuel line hole. And that'll do. One last thing you can do to make sure it's really clean is you can remove the adjustment screw. Do it one at a time so you don't mix them up. And you could blow air through those holes as well. You also want to make sure that the tip of the adjustment needles are clean like that. So just insert your air nozzle here and blow lightly. You can see the air coming out of here. Now I'm going to screw the screw right back in and then turn it out 2 turns. And then when the saw starts, I'm going to readjust them. Now I'm going to repeat the process with this adjustment screw and blow some air through it. And I'm going to put it back in, screw it to the end, and then turn it out 2 turns. The reason why I'm putting it out at 2 turns is because usually they will always start at 2 turns. They may not run right, but at least it will start, and then I can adjust it from there. So once your carb's all cleaned up like that, it's time to reassemble it.